how are you today? Welcome to the galley. It's a busy galley today. Can you hear that sizzle? I'm working on some caramelized onions. I've got beef, well, French onion, beef sliders going on. I'm going to be working on getting a big pot of stock on the stove. That's just going to sit there forever. And for us today, right now, I got this big pot out for beef and vegetable soup. I've got a plethora of different vegetables. We've got some beef, and we're going to make this big pot of soup so that I can put it in the freezer to pull out when you just need that quick and easy dish. So we're going to make some beautiful beef soup. Let's just get into it. So for my meat for this soup is I have some beef chuck. Now they cut the beef chuck up in strips down here and call them beef chuck steaks or beef chuck ribs. And I just call it beef chuck. And I also have this veal chuck. So what I want to do is cut all of this up into bite-sized pieces. So I'm going for pieces about this size, and pieces of fat like that I am going to cut off. Now, soups have always been my favorite thing to cook. And whenever anybody asks me, what's your favorite thing? And it's just soups. And I think what I like is that freedom that they bring, that there's no real strict rules to follow. I can put the recipe down for this beef and vegetable soup, but honestly, this is just the beef and vegetable soup that I'm making today. The next time I make it different. I might use short ribs instead. I might not put green. So it's about what soup you're making that day, and you do not have to follow a recipe down to the letter. Use the meat that you want, use the vegetables that you want, and just get creative. Make a creative beef and vegetable soup. Maybe you add some wild rice, or maybe you add some barley. It's your soup. That's the beauty. Make it yours. In the recipe, I'm going to put 2 pounds of diced stew meat, and you just decide what your stew meat is for you. Well, I'm going to salt and pepper, and then I'm going to add a little bit of flour. Now, if you have gluten intolerant and you need to make it without the flour, absolutely. This is not like a cream soup, but I do like that little bit of flour. It helps coat the beef, but it also is going to help add a little structure to your soup. So just a little bit. It doesn't need a lot. I've got my pot warming up, ready to go. So I've got my pot nice and hot. I'm going to go in with a swirl of avocado oil, and then in with our beef. I'll probably just do half, just to not overcrowd and cool down my pan. What I'm doing is browning my beef, and then I'm going to add the onions and the stock, and I'm just going to let this cook for about an hour, because this meat is going to take way longer to cook than my vegetables. So I just want to get this started, and while that is taking its first hour of cooking, then I can get my vegetables ready. I'm going to pull the first batch out. I'm going to add a little more oil and add our second batch. Now, normally I do all my soups in my Dutch oven, but I didn't think I was going to have enough space in my Dutch oven for this today. So I brought out the little bigger pot. So I'm going to put that meat back in there, and I'm going to add my onions. And I'm going to let this cook for a minute and let those onions soften up, and I'm going to add some garlic. So I've got my onions and beef softening. I've got I think I did 5 cloves of garlic, and they're big garlic, and I just smashed them so that Allison can start working its way out before I'm ready for them. And then I'm going to press them in there. And I'm also going to add, I've got my can of whole tomatoes, and if you know, then you know that this is my favorite The only ingredient in these are tomatoes and tomato puree. So I love these tomatoes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to strain them because I want to be able to dice them later up to put in the soup. If you buy diced tomatoes, they're treated with something, I can't tell you the name right now, so that they don't break apart, so that they hold those beautiful little diced shapes. So if you do put them in your soup, they're always going to look like that. They're not going to cook away. But I just like to use my canned tomatoes and dice them myself. So I'm just going to set those to drain. I'll rinse that can out. And then I'll put the juice in the soup and dice up the tomatoes later. But I am going to add a can of cream style corn. Make sure that's cream style. Because what I like about the cream style corn, I do have some fresh ears. I'm going to cut off the cob. But I like the body that the cream style corn gives my soup. And again, these are all things, do them or don't do them. Or change it up. This is just my soup that I'm making today. So can you just see that beautiful tomato puree that those tomatoes are in? It's just a thing of beauty. So in with our garlic, my can of cream corn, my tomato, and look at that beautiful puree. Isn't that gorgeous? The tomatoes we'll dice up and put in later. And then we're going to add some beef stock. Now, a lot of the reason I'm making this is because I'm switching out my beef stocks. I've had this beef stock in the freezer for a while, and I want to make some new and just replace it. So I've been doing things that need beef stock. And if you watch my video on beef stock, you know that I cook mine down and concentrate it until it's super, super thick. And then it's just super concentrated. And I'm not adding any water yet to it. I'm just going to leave it just like this. And let me show you. So this is what we have. We have our beef, our onions, a can of cream corn, the juice from our tomatoes, and some beef stock, some very concentrated beef stock. Now I'm going to put my lid on this. I'm going to bring this to a boil. I'm going to reduce it to simmer, and I'm going to simmer it for an hour. And in that time, we'll get our vegetables ready. So I think we're about an hour in, and we're just really slowly simmering. We should probably test a piece and see. And is it tender? Yes. Is it eatable tender? No. So we still got a little ways to go. But we're going to start building some flavors here. And I'm going to add some celery. So I just want to give this a nice bite-sized dice. And then, of course, we need some carrots. And I purposely didn't put my carrots in early because I really want my carrots to be present in the soup and not just cooked away. Now, I stored these carrots, and I had to go back and look at my video, and I did my video on how I store carrots on September 28th. Today is October 20th, and they are not soft. They are not mushy. Look at that, how firm they are. Now, I especially like the mixed carrots for soups because it adds a whole lot of different colors. Now the white carrots I think taste a lot like turnips, and the orange carrots taste like orange carrots, and then the purple are my favorite. I just think they are a lot sweeter than all of the carrots, and they contain more beta carotene than all of the others. So we're going to get those peeled and diced up. So again, we're looking for nice bite-sized pieces. We don't want people to choke. And one thing about carrots, and I will never cut my carrot in a circle like that because it is the perfect size to choke you, to sit in your esophagus and not go anywhere. So, and especially for little kids, even if they're cooked and they get soft, it's still like a perfect size. So I never ever cut my carrots in the old circle like that. So that's kind of like the size that I'm going for there. In we go. And they're just going to be visually stunning. Now we're doing this in layers because some things take longer to cook than others. And carrots and celery is one of them. And then I have those tomatoes that I drained. And so I'm going to dice those up. So I'm okay if these cook for a while, and I'm okay if they break up because they're going to add body and they're going to add flavor. So it's really starting to fill up. I'm glad I went with the big pot. And now I have some potatoes. I like a little bit of tomato. And again, I want these so they're in a kind of a bite size. So these potatoes and all of the other vegetables all came from the farm stand. So the potatoes and everything else was grown within 3 miles of where we are right now, which I just think is so beautiful. I don't think I'm going to use all of these potatoes. I don't want overload of potatoes. So I got fresh peas. We've got green beans that we're going to snap. I took the corn off 2 kernels of 2 ears of corn. If you want to put greens in your soup, they just add so much healthy benefits. You could do spinach, you could do kale, you could do turnip greens, you can do whatever kind of greens that you like. And they had these beautiful, fresh little turnip greens. So that's what I decided to do. And also, now that I'm thinking about it, when I set the beef to cook earlier, I meant to add a little Worcestershire, so I'm gonna add some Worcestershire. And I'm gonna add some hot sauce. But the greens I'm just gonna tear up into nice pieces, and they're gonna go in a lot later. It's a little early for them. So these kind of things, I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm gonna pop my top on here, and I'm gonna give this about 30 minutes to simmer away, and then we'll come back and add some more veggies. While I'm waiting for next batches of vegetables, I'm gonna add some pesto. In my freezer, I've got some pesto that I put up when my friend Laura gave me a bunch of pesto, and I'm gonna drop 2 of those in there. And I also, yesterday, made some fresh Italian seasoning. And I'm gonna start with a teaspoon, and then we'll taste and maybe add more. Now, altogether, we've been cooking about 1 hour and 45 minutes. And I just want to do some testing. I want to test the potatoes and the carrots and the meat. How beautiful, huh? So my potato is fork tender. So that is perfect. You don't want it too overcooked because cooling down and adding the other vegetables, we still have cooking time. Celery. Excellent. Beef. Oh, now that's fork tender. And you can see it just pulls right apart. So, they're delicious. So I'm going to take, next, we're going to go with our corn, those green beans, and I just did them in little small bite-sized pieces. And then I got my peas. They sell these peas at the farm stand, and they just freeze them as soon as they pick them. Peas don't have a long life outside. Once they're picked, they go pretty quick, which is why you see them mostly canned and frozen. And I don't know, I think that's a bit much. But fresh peas. Now, turnip greens are going to be wanting a little bit of cooking time. Not like if I was doing spinach, I would put the spinach in, turn off the heat, and be done with it. Kale, I would put kale in now. If I was doing collard greens, I would put that in now. So the kale, or the turnip greens, I'm going to go ahead, and now these are young, they're still going to want a little cooking time. So I'm going to go ahead and drop those greens in there. Because I put that beef broth in there undiluted, I'm going to add a little water, but I think we need it, because I think if not, we're not going to have enough broth for our soup. It's going to be all stuff and no broth, and I like a little bit of both. So I wanted you to come down and just see how beautiful this soup looks. Now, could we add more things? Absolutely. Let me get that stem out of there. Can we take away some things? Absolutely. Put in your very favorite things. That's what this is all about. That's what soup is all about. Your favorite things all warm and snuggly in a bowl. Now I want to taste my broth. So we're only going to cook this for 15 more minutes, and then we're pulling it. So now's the time I want to start tasting. Okay, that's good. I'm going to go in now with a big pinch of salt, because I'm okay now to salt it. I'm going to do my mixed pepper. And I think I'm going to do just about a teaspoon of the Italian seasoning. Now, are you going to have pesto in the freezer if you make this soup? Probably not. And that's okay. You might just add a little more Italian seasoning. Every pot of soup is unique. Unique and beautiful in its own right. Make sure that's mixed up good. It might need just a little more salt, but I'm going to give it its 15 minutes, and then we'll see. So I do believe I'm calling this beautiful pot of soup done. I'm going to do one final test, or taste. Beefy, vegetable-y, delicious. Excellent pot of soup. So leave me a comment. Tell me what you like to put in your beef and vegetable soup. And go out there and be creative. And make a beautiful pot of soup. Isn't it gorgeous? Thanks for being with me today. Love y'all, and I'll see everybody later. Until then, safe cruising.